Once again, I'm just going to be a tiny little guy in the top right. As far as exam 2 goes, I'm going to walk you through a handout and 2 PowerPoints, or I'm sorry, well, two PDFs of the PowerPoints. The exam has 20 multiple choice questions worth 3 points each, and then 5 definitions from the vocabulary list worth 5 points each, and then 4 short answer questions worth 15 points each. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill through the material and point out to you what you want to make sure you're familiar with. This is from the note-taking guide to drilling and completing a well. Obviously, those of you who watch the DVD with me are going to be better positioned to do well on this. But if you didn't have a chance to see that DVD, that's fine. You can just go through and read the textbook again, and that will give you the same information. It's just not visual. As far as the well, drilling and completing and the physical acts of that, the main things I focus on are who are the players, in other words, what are their names and what do they go by, and what jobs do they have on the drill site. And the reason that's important is you can't go out there and call people the wrong thing. It's like looking at a running back on a football team and calling them a quarterback. Anybody who knows anything about the industry knows that you're talking gibberish, and I don't want you to embarrass yourself, which is why I focus on understanding those concepts. Beyond that, you're going to want to be aware of the major pieces of the rigs and what they do in the drilling process. And so as far as the rig components go, certainly the big pieces like the doghouse, the mast, the bottom hole assembly. We talk about the rotary table versus the top drive. And notice a rotary table, that's what spins the Kelly. If you have a rotary table, you don't have to have a top drive. And those are the two major differences in drilling rigs that you're going to want to be aware of. We've already talked about why the people are important, and then this is important to keep in mind that the 3 basic functions of a rig are to hoist itself up and down, to rotate the drill string, and then to circulate with the mud. So having an understanding of these major pieces will all be helpful. And then the major processes, there is a question or 2 on cementing the well, casing and cementing the well that will be important. There's also question on blowout preventers, and so you have a blowout preventer, and then you have the components of the blowout preventer. There's a question on mud, and you're going to want to be familiar with mud, and then the concept of lost circulation, what it means, and then how you can take advantage of that. And I already told you in the email previously that it's going to be really important for you to understand directional drilling. So here's the tools that are necessary, and the roller cone bits, that goes below. That's not a part of directional drilling. But this information, I would read the textbook carefully, and I would read, or if you didn't view the DVD, and then I gave you some other material that you could look over, but it's going to be very important you understand the tools and techniques and processes of directional drilling. Nothing in particular off of this. I'm going to pause the recording and transition to a different set of notes. Our next subject for this block was producing the oil and gas and operating the lease. So you're going to want to be familiar with what a casing head and a Christmas tree are and what their functions are. I got ahead of myself. Nope, there we go. Fracking, be ready to explain this process and understand what tools and techniques are necessary. Reservoir drives, make sure that you understand the various types of reservoir drives. Now, keep in mind that reservoir drives are you're typically talking about a conventional well. This isn't so much true of an unconventional well where you're drilling into the source rock. Know about how pump jacks work and how they differ from electric submersible pumps and which are good at what. Understand improved recovery. Those of you that went on to the lease visit got to see a great example of what a water flooding operation can do and understand how it's different than enhanced recovery. Pay careful attention to this part of the video where we talk about what's important when you look at any sort of works you're going to do on a well. once it started production. As far as surface handlings, make sure you understand how a separator works. Nothing about this, nothing about this. And I actually took out the question on this, but this is a key point. It's cleaned up fairly quickly. Make sure you pay careful attention to what goes wrong over time and what's needed to be done to work that. And also pay careful attention to the idea of lease operating expenses. I gave you a lot of information on that, and we talked extensively in class how that differs. So again, you're getting this theme of, like I told you before, what we talked about in class was really a review for what I expect you to know for the exam. So there's areas that we talked about a lot in class. Hopefully you've got some notes, and that will help you focus. I'm going to stop this and switch one more time. Lastly, again in class, we talked about financing activities. Talked about the difference between debt and equity, and in class discussion, we applied those to the specifics of what it is often involved with raising money to fund a drilling operation. Make sure that you understand when debt and equity are commonly used. I illustrated a lot of stuff by talking about Diamondback, but there's no specific questions related to Diamondback. Certainly understanding that material may help you answer the question. And then we talked about Diamondback being a public company with access to public markets. Then we looked at what do companies do, private companies do that aren't going out on the public markets. Talked about reserve-based lending. It's going to be very important for you to understand that. Again, we talked about that quite a bit in class. And we also talked about private equity, and understanding private equity and the goods and the bads of private equity will help you a lot on the exam. And I believe that covers the exam.